on August 21st, 2018. Welcome, everyone. I see an elected official in the room. Commissioner Bartleman, welcome. We're happy to have you here. Do you have your pen and paper? Not tonight. All right. Would you mind calling roll, please, City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Present.
Commissioner Holland?
Present.
Commissioner Rhodes? Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Mayor Harless?
Present. Commissioner Holland, would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Yes.
Please stand with us.
Dear Lord, we ask your blessings on all of us who have been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. Remind us that no matter where we live, everyone is our neighbor, our sibling, and that throughout the ages, prophets have called the leaders of the people to respect and protect the least of those among us. Our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind, or spirit, the strangers and immigrants in our midst, those who live on the margins, those who are alone, those who are forgotten. Grant us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May we speak out when it is time to speak out and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true. Amen.
Amen. Please stay standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Are there any deletions to the agenda tonight?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And we have a presentation from the National Quilt Museum. Mr. Frank Bennett, welcome.
How you doing?
Good.
City Manager, welcome to Paducah.
Thank you, sir.
Good? All right, guys. As you know, from time to time, usually around my fiscal year, we'll come up and give you guys an update on what's going on at the Quilt Museum. This year, I'm going to do something a little bit different because I want to give you information that's most relevant to the discussions that you have and the economic impact of the museum. So I'm actually going to do a 7-year snapshot from 2011 to now to show you some trends that are going on. But I don't have much time, so we jump back in. I need to do some terminology here. So a lot of different museums and tourist attractions in town calculate visitors in different ways. I want you guys to understand the way I do, so we're going to run through this very quickly. The most common way people visit the museum, and this is what we're going to mostly talk about tonight, is through front desk admissions. It's just like going to a movie theater. You come in, you pay your money, you go into the galleries. This isn't the clicker, though. There has to be a financial transaction in order to be credited as front desk admission. The second group that gets counted is workshops and events. These happen, it's about 20 different things, from adult workshops to retreats, renting the rooms that we have. For example, last week, a retreat rented our rooms for three days and did the galleries and did a hands-on thing. Basically, it means that you paid us money, but you didn't pay us money at the front desk. You paid us money in some other way. And then the third thing, as you guys know, is we have a whole lot of free programs. Over 3,000 people a year, and it's many, many different things. You see a list right there. The top picture, I'm quite sure, is kids that are in quilt camp. Most of the people who are in our free programs they're mostly youth programs, and they're either completely free or significantly discounted. The group in the bottom left is getting a tour. That's a group of kids getting a tour. And I'm quite sure the girl with the picture is in one of these monthly classes. There's a whole bunch of different ones. Everything that's listed there. Also included in this is, for example, when Leadership Paducah comes, that's listed in your group. And even when your young group came a month ago, that will be part of this. Last week, Leadership Kentucky came. Anything that the state government folks, there's a whole lot of things that go into free programming. And that's not really what I'm here to talk about, but there's quite a bit of it, and it's just part of what we put on. I'm going to go back. The rest of this is actually about front desk admissions, which is really what this whole presentation is about. This is an amalgam of what an average front desk visitor is. So the average person who comes into our museum to see the museum traveled 180 miles. They're going to be in Paducah for about 30 hours. 50% of them are cultural tourists. Some people sometimes will ask, what's a cultural tourist? That's a synonym for art tourist. It just means that as they travel the world, they go to museums. They're very affluent. They're generally very educated. Usually it's a two white-collar job family. About 45% of our folks are quilters, about 5% other. The average household income in this group is $92,000. In the cultural tourist, it's higher. The quilters are a little lower. We can do that another time. I kind of shrunk it together just for this report. But that's the average makeup of a visitor that comes to the museum. You guys also know that we have a global audience. We get an average year visitors from over 40 different countries. All 50 states are represented. In fact, in 8 months of the year, we get visitors from over 40 states. And every month of the year, we get visitors from 35 states. In fact, the information on geography comes from our sign-in book in the gallery, where it's like a welcome book. So that's probably done by 40 to 50% of the people who come in. So this is the absolute minimum number geographically of people who come into the museum. But as you can see, it's all year long. Well, occasionally we even have 50s. I think May 2017 was a 50, where we had people from every state. Wow. Interesting note, whenever we don't, for some reason, it's either New Hampshire or Vermont.
You would think they'd like quilts. It's cold up there.
I know. We get more people from Hawaii than Vermont. Yeah. So that's your fact for trivia, by the way, for the room. All right, here's a breakdown of the spending these folks do. So I mentioned that they're here for about 30 hours. In those 30 hours, they're going to eat 3 times. They're going to do some tourist shopping. You know, I mentioned the cultural tourists tend to spend more money. The 200 is an average. I had my shop manager, so this is my gift shop manager, do a 30-day track. And she told me we actually had 14 individual transactions of over $300 in the gift shop in the last 30 days. And if those folks spent $300 in my gift shop, they spent some money in Paducah. But this is the basic. We're going to come back to this just to let you know this comes up to a number a little bit above 450. But we'll get back to that.
Also, so you're spending more than $60 if you're eating at 3 restaurants.
You're spending more than $60 if you're getting gas right now.
Yeah.
But I tried to go pretty conservative on this, so we didn't get into that. This next graph, as it plays out, is a breakdown specifically of front desk admissions growth from 2011 to now. It represents those 7 years. By the way, I'm talking fiscal years. We go July to June. It also represents the entire time I've been in Paducah. My very first day as a Paducah citizen was June 20th, 2011. I'm going to run through this. So we started in front desk admissions 2011. We had 22,400 people. It's not bad. 2012, whoops.
Now wait, Frank, this is not the sign-in book. This is actually admissions. The sign-in book's just where you get the geographic network.
Correct.
Okay, so this is everyone who came through.
Yeah, this is, so I talked about the 3 categories of people who come. For you to be on this list, you had to have gone to the front desk and paid an admission. There had to have been a financial transaction. Okay. So it's not a clicker, it's not people walking past a point. There actually had to be a monetary transaction. So we started around 22, and in 2012 I gained about 3,000 visitors, got us around 25. Did it again, 2013, got us around 28. 2014, I had a little growth. It wasn't as much, 28.9. Had another year like that, 28.7. And 2016 was my only down year. I've been here for 7 years, and I've had 6 years of growth. In 2016, we dropped to 28.182. Sorry about that, but in 17, I brought it back to in fiscal 2017-18, we had 33,000, almost 34,000 visitors paid admission to the front desk. So the headline of this whole thing is that if you go from 2011 to 2017, we've had a growth of front desk admissions of that number. Wow. So to put this in, thank you. To put this in a real easy summary headline, for every 2 people who came to the Quilt Museum in 2011, 3 people came in 2017. Wow. I want to do a thing because this comes up. Does everybody have this? You good? Mm-hmm. I can always email this later. One of the most common questions that I'm asked a lot has to do with the difference and kind of the back and forth, really the whole puzzle of the difference between visitors to the National Quilt Museum and visitors to the AQS quilt shows. I get really this question every single day. So here's what I did. The headline of this is that they're 85% different audiences. That's the headline of the whole thing. Now, you guys know I have no access to AQS's numbers. They're an entirely different company. So what I did here is I took the April show, which we can track for several years back, made an average of how many visitors we would have had if the show didn't exist at all. And everything above that average, I counted in this number. September, we've only had one September. So I took the averages of past Septembers for the museum, and everything above that, I counted to the show. Really easily put, in April, we get between 3,500 and 4,000 people during the show. In the September show we had 1,350 people that you can directly attribute to the show. So long story short, they're entirely different groups of tourists, 85% wise anyway. What they do is great for the city. What we do is great for the city, I hope. But it really is two completely different groups of tourists both coming to Paducah. So now I'm going to talk impact. Oh, yeah, this is actually.
I love that quilt.
That is a quilt. Yeah, that quilt is called Ricky and Lucy. It is in our collection, and we do feed those birds. So I'm going to get into the math of this now. We discussed how much people spend while they're in town. And we're just going to break this down. So you saw that in 2011, we had 22,400 or so visitors come in tourism impact, averaging them to $450 in today's dollars. That's about $10 million of impact. You heard me talk about the education and workshop group. What that is education and workshops go up and down. It's not growing. It depends on a number of variables, and it just fluctuates. I took the last 5 years and estimate, it came out to like 31 something. I just made it 3,000 for this point. $450 per person, that comes to about 1.3. I put in the free programs. About 90% of the people who get free programs from us are local. It does make an intra-community impact. For example, if someone lives in the county and they come to one of our programs, they probably ate downtown, but that's not what I'm talking about today. It is relevant to downtown, but it's a different discussion. So the difference over the last 11 years to how much we did this year was 11,436 more people, 2011 to now. $450 times 11,436 is another $5 million. On top of that, we have an economic impact as a business in the city. Our budget is $1.2 million a year. Over 80% of that is in local spending with local vendors. We have 23 employees. They're all local. They all spend their paychecks here in the area. The combination of those two things is about $900,000. The end note of this whole thing, if you summarize it, for 2017-18, is an overall economic tourism impact on Paducah of about $17 million. I have an additional thing. I didn't make a slide for this, but there's a lot of discussion that goes on around Paducah about the arts and does it have impact? Does it have financial impact? I like to look at this for a second as if you're just betting on the stock market. You invested in the stock market. So the city this year will give the National Quilt Museum about $14,000, and thank you. So if you actually looked at that like it was the stock market, you have to say that, well, a real basic thing is if you had $100 and it became $200, you doubled your growth, and that's a fantastic stock you just took. If you tripled it, that might be the best stock you'd ever had if you got to 200%. Well, the difference between the $14,000 you invested in the National Quilt Museum and the $17 million result you got from the whole thing is 124,000%. So that was an okay investment for you guys. I don't think anyone's going to complain about that one. That's the end of my presentation. What would you guys like to discuss?
The stock market.
Sure. I am clearly an expert in that matter. Now, does anybody have any questions?
That's great. Thank you, Frank. That's awesome. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions?
Well, I don't have any questions, but it's amazing folks that live here, as they think the only traffic, substantial traffic that the Quilt Museum get is during the events, the quilt show.
Yeah.
And then when you come and you talk about the traffic that's, we're not talking about April, we're not talking about September, it just, it's really amazing how popular and how passionate folks are about quilts and all the activities that goes along with that. So yeah, sometimes we hear, we're like, who goes to the quilts? Well, a lot of people, obviously.
Yep.
So it's always good to hear.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Are you not going to ask your city leadership who's been to the Quilt Museum in the last 6 months? Thank you. I just want to say, first of all, I think that this is fantastic. I think your metrics are awesome and very much appreciated. And I hope other people follow your lead and coming here and presenting metrics like this, because I think this is fantastic. And I think the economic impact is fantastic. And I never doubted it for a second. I do want to say, though, that I think that the Quilt Museum and anything that we have in our downtown, particularly with regards to our arts and culture, is the dollars are important, but they are not the only thing that's important. And I know you know that. I just want to say that publicly, that I think the impact of the Quilt Museum, the economic impact is amazing and can't be argued. But there is impact in our community by the presence of these organizations and of these just amazing locales to visit, way beyond the economic impact. My children go to field trips to the Quilt Museum. I go to the Quilt Museum. I think there is much more to a community than just the dollars pumping through it. And I think that the Quilt Museum contributes more than just economic impact, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things that I, in the last year and a half, have learned is the stories of the beginnings of the Quilt Museum and the effort it took for our community to get behind putting the kinds of time and resources around getting the National Quilt Museum to Paducah. And I think about that from our perspective, how easy it is to take it for granted, how much work has gone into making sure that we're on the map for the National Quilt Museum. So thank you for your leadership and taking that baton and continuing that. Leadership Kentucky was here last week, and I spent Friday with them after they had been to the Quilt Museum, I guess 2 days before that.
Yep.
And I always love to hear when someone says, that's not just about quilts, that's an art museum. And that is something I think is important when people walk away from there. They realize that's an art museum. It's not blankets. No, it really is art. So thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. Really appreciate it.
I have
Absolutely.
a question, Frank.
Yes,
Speaking
ma'am.
of the beginnings of the Quilt Museum, I believe I participated in a time capsule at the Quilt Museum when I was a child. Do we
Yes.
know when we get to dig that up? Because I'm
Yes,
really...
I do.
You do? When is
It's
it?
2043. We're in year 27 of the museum. It was a 50-year time capsule.
Yeah, I was in it. I don't remember what I put in it, but I remember participating. 2023. Okay, I'm excited.
People will frequently ask me if I know what's in it. I have no idea
I
what's
don't
in
remember.
it.
I remember doing something. Well, that's exciting. Okay.
Thank you for all you do, and thank you for allowing all the groups to go through there.
Thank you.
Send a
I
lot
enjoy
of
it.
groups through there. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. All right, one announcement before we move on. If anyone's here that wants to make a public comment, make sure you go fill one of these out. I want to make sure we don't leave anyone out tonight before the end of the meeting. All right, let's move on to the business. We have the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed. Does anyone have anything they need to remove tonight? All right. Would you please read the items on the agenda, please?
Minutes for the July 23rd, July 24th, and August 7th, 2018 City Commission meetings. Receive and file documents. Personnel actions. A municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for strategic health risk advisor and strategic benefit placement services and an advisory agreement services addendum with Peel & Holland Financial Group for administration of the City of Paducah's health insurance. A municipal order ratifying the mayor's execution of a grant application and all documents necessary in partnership with the Paducah Art House Alliance through the National Endowment for the Arts, NEA, for an Our Town grant in the amount of $200,000 for Phase 2 of the restoration of the Columbia Theater, and authorizing the Planning Department to submit said grant through the online grant portal. A municipal order authorizing the execution of a grant application to obtain a 2018-2019 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Accountability Grant through the U.S. Department of Justice in the amount of $11,816 to be used by the Paducah Police Department for the purchase of handheld radios. A municipal order approving an agreement with the Kentucky Department for Local Government to obtain a Community Development Block Grant Award on behalf of the Four Rivers Behavioral Health Centerpoint Recovery Center, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents relating to same. A municipal order authorizing the purchase and installation of playground equipment for the Pat and Jim Brockenborough Rotary Health Park from Game Time through the U.S. Communities Purchasing Cooperative in the amount of $51,157.19. A municipal order accepting the bid for sale to the city of 6 pickup trucks in the amount of $145,412 for use by the Parks Department and the Fleet and Street Divisions of the Engineering Public Works Department, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. A municipal order authorizing the purchase of dumpsters, lids, and replacement parts in an amount of $120,000 for fiscal year 2018-2019 for utilization by the commercial businesses within the City of Paducah. A municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Barkley Regional Airport in the amount of $110,000 for general aviation and carrier services. A municipal order naming the lake at Bob Noble Park Lake Gerry B. Montgomery.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Abraham?
I move that.
No, wait, we're voting
Oh,
on the
I'm
consent
sorry. I
agenda.
thought that we. Yeah. Aye.
Commissioner Holland?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. All right, I think we do want to take a moment just to talk about the naming of Noble Park Lake. So that's not you, but I do want to point it out. Last night at the Paducah Ambassadors Dinner, we were able to present Mayor Montgomery with a photo of the lake at Noble Park, and we have now officially named it Lake Gerry. What's her middle name? B. Montgomery. And so hopefully we're going to work on a big celebration for her and a plaque out at the lake, and she definitely deserves that. I don't know if many people know, but she definitely gets the credit for bringing back Noble Park when she was the mayor, and it had kind of fallen to the wayside, and she decided that it was an important asset to our community. So I think she cried last night. She was honored in so many ways. It was a really important event. Do you want to say anything else about that?
I just wanted, I know it's on the consent agenda, I didn't want to pull it, but I wanted to make sure that we got the word out that that had been done last night and named in her honor. And it was the 30th anniversary for the Paducah Ambassadors that she started that program.
Right.
So it was a really nice event, and I know her family they were all there, and we're very appreciative of what we've done with naming it for her.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful.
Much deserved, that's for sure. All right, now, Commissioner Abraham, are you ready?
I am. I move that a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute an Amendment to the Agreement with Tyler Technologies for the license of software and the procurement of related products and services," be adopted.
Second.
Hi.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to give you a brief update on all of the great Munis activities that we have going on. So just as a reminder, we are live with the expenditures group, so that's all our financials, budget, purchasing, and then our revenue group is live with the business licenses and some small general billing. So if you see any of the finance staff around, please encourage them. They're doing a great job. I just want to reiterate what a tremendous amount of work it is to do their regular business and transition to the new software. And we've had no hiccups in services, so it's pretty amazing.
You should not have said that. Bad idea.
Yeah, no kidding. So I say that to let you know that that has laid the foundation for some really exciting features that the public has been waiting for. So what we're looking at is later this, probably after the first of the year, we'll be able to roll out our self-service features, so people will be able to log in and do business with the city for their business licenses. They'll be able to renew them, pay online, pay by credit card. That should be rolled out at the first of the year. The other thing we're moving towards, we are under implementation for property tax and codes and permitting. So once those are live, we'll also roll out self-service features for property tax payments, and you'll be able to submit applications online for codes and permitting.
When will that be?
We're working through that right now, but hopefully 2019. We're at the very early stages of property tax. So with no hiccups, it'll be rolled out at their next bill. Not this coming one, but the next year. The other thing we're working into the plan right now is during the strategic planning meeting, it was identified that it was a high priority to get service requests up and running, and we have the possibility to do that through Munis. So we're evaluating our project plan and figuring out when the best time to place that in is, because we don't have that currently scheduled. But it does have the capability, and we're looking at moving it up based on the strategic plan.
What would be included in service requests?
That's an excellent question, and that is to be determined. Okay. That's going to be a major departmental effort. We're going to have to bring all departments in and look at what type of requests they get and figure out how we want to set it up in the system. But the goal is definitely to improve customer services and be able so you can access City Hall 24/7. That's kind of how I think about it.
Love that.
So as we get into that, we'll definitely keep you informed and give you more information. That's just, that's going to be a big undertaking, and I don't think we know the details yet.
Okay.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, it just goes with the action steps for crowdsourcing, being able to report potholes, tall grass, that type
Love
of
it.
thing. But, 24 hours a day, and then it gets, routed through the system through work orders, that type of thing.
The Domino's Pizza model. I love that
Yes,
Domino's Pizza app.
And you're able to track it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's good.
And then
Yeah.
the response, just like the Domino's Pizza app, the people who actually put the petition in for the request will get updates
You can track
on that status.
or your request.
So you see where
Track
it's at.
that pothole.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It won't move like the pizza does.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, what if we did like under 24 days or something?
That would be a nice feature.
But we'll dig into that more and we'll keep you updated. That's what's really exciting is we're getting ready to roll out all of these public-facing pieces where we've had to lay the foundation, so the public hasn't gotten to hear a lot about it yet.
Yeah, that's
but it's
exciting.
definitely coming. We are recruiting for one key piece of the team right now. You might have seen it go out. It's a business solutions or business systems analyst. And this position is dedicated to Munis, and they're going to be a great resource for our functional leads so that we can make sure we're maximizing the use of that software. They're going to help us translate what we're doing, determine how we can do it better, and get it into the software. So that's kind of a key piece that we're missing right now that has made the implementation a little bit more difficult. So we're looking to recruit that, and they're going to play a key role in the self-service features as well.
And that job is live open right now, correct?
Yes. So if any good applicants are watching, please apply. Before I get into codes and permitting, did you want to give any other update, Jim?
No, you're
City
fine.
Manager? Okay. So what you have before you is the codes and permitting change order. We are about halfway through implementation right now, and I wanted to share a little bit about the great work that they've been doing. So this is a great cross-departmental effort. We have engineering, public works in the room, we have planning, we have fire prevention, and we have IT. And this group took it upon themselves to make their own vision statement for their phase. And so I want to share that with you. Their vision is to create a positive user experience through innovative strategies, resulting in seamless interdepartmental collaboration, empowered staff, and informed citizens.
Well, that is
fantastic.
wonderful.
Yep, and so that's what they're using to guide their decisions.
Love it.
So great. So some outputs from that, they have reduced the number of application types like single-family residential, fence permits, all that stuff in half. So we had over 100 and we're down to 50.
Of what were they doing?
Application types, so like single-family residential, fencing permits. So any type of permits, they've evaluated and tried to figure out how they can streamline it and make it more user-friendly for people so that they'll be able to go online and submit these applications.
What was your starting number?
Over 100.
She said.
Over 100.
For permits?
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So they're taking advantage of this opportunity to evaluate what we do and why we do it. The other tremendous amount of work has been cleaning up our data. So they cleaned up over 17,000 addresses and created a new coding system, got them into the system, and it will allow for us to be able to more accurately identify building types on each parcel, zoning, all kinds of things. They cleaned up all this data and got it in the system. So it'll help us with our, basically how we process permits. It's a tremendous amount of work. And the other big thing is just having these departments in the room. This is kind of the first time we've really all got together like this and talked about how we do business, why we do business, what opportunities are there. So it's been a great cross-departmental effort. So with that being said, this is why this change order is in front of you. We built the project plan, over 2 years ago now, and as we get into it, we realize we have maybe a little bit too much of something and not enough of something else. So in the original project plan, we have a lot of budget for conversions that turns out that we don't need, and so we're converting those to implementation days because we were a little short on implementation days. They had about half the amount of time with the software vendor that some of the other phases had. So we're just adjusting moving line items. I think it's actually decreasing the contract by about $50. So very, very minimal adjustment, yeah. That's it. Do you have any questions about the project?
No, great work.
Okay,
Thank you for the update. It definitely is something that you take for granted because we don't see it happening. And it is a huge effort that has to happen from the staff. So kudos to everyone. Commissioner Holland.
Let's do a vote on that
Oh,
one first.
let's vote. Why don't we? Go ahead.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Holland?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. Yeah, Commissioner Holland.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for the Closing of a Portion of Adams Street, a portion of South 24th Street, and an alley parallel to South 24th and 25th Streets between Adams Street and Jackson Street, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents relating to the same." This ordinance is summarized as follows. That the City of Paducah hereby authorizes the closing of a portion of Adams Street, a portion of South 24th Street, and an alley parallel to South 24th and 25th Streets between Adams Street and Jackson Street, and authorizes the mayor to execute all documents necessary to complete the transfer of property to the property owners in or abutting the public ways to be closed.
Second.
Any discussion? No? All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Holland?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. And the city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just have a few things. Just number one, just to update the public and the Board of Commissioners that we do have music on the riverfront this Saturday night. If you guys want to go downtown. We also have the making progress on the strategic plan. Of course, myself and Assistant City Manager Michelle Small has been working on the action steps, making sure we align them with the citizen survey. I mentioned I worked with Pam a little bit on that this morning, and then also trying to compare to the adopted budget. So make sure we have alignment financially with the citizen survey and the work that we did the other night. And we were hoping to have that all ready to go by the 30th of this month. And then the budget committees, they have begun. Two have already met. The three that have not met are the ones I still need to get out, and that would be the personnel, fleet, and facilities. So stay tuned for that. Those will be coming out, and hopefully we get those meetings soon. And then that is all I have.
Excellent, thank you. Any comments from the board tonight?
I have a couple.
Okay.
First, I'd like to congratulate Paducah Tillman on their victory over the Cracken County. Well, fought game. There were no injuries, so everybody it's turning into a really good rivalry. So I just want to do a shout out to both of those squads. Also, I want to briefly comment on the article that was in the paper today, and just some conversations regarding Keeton. No official action or anything, but I want to make sure that everyone understands where I'm coming from with this conversation. I emailed, hopefully everybody got one, a letter that I had addressed to Secretary Tilley and CC the governor on our situation over on Clarence Gaines Street. So having said that, I want to go back just a little bit. It's kind of interesting. This right here, it's kind of yellowed. I had a little bit more hair there. You can't tell I got a hat on. This article, this is 1996. And any of our law enforcement folks, if you look back at the crime stats in that area, that's 7th and Adams, it was pretty bad back then. And a group of believers decided, you know what? Why don't we walk those streets and pray for change? And so we did that. And it was March Lay's claim to city streets in Christ's name. So we did that, and I'm really glad that I've lived long enough to see the transformation in that neighborhood. Having said that, I shared with the commission a letter. I want to hold up on that letter to Secretary Tilley and the governor, because this may take a different turn. So I'm going to hold up on that for a second. I like to, it's been confirmed by our legal counsel that this elected body has the authority to create public policy that requires Keeton Correctional Facility that they must notify our guys, our 911 staff, when there is confirmation that an inmate has escaped. And I'd like to thank the city manager and the staff for really digging into that, finding out what we could do, what tools we had in our belt to do that. And that was great. But upon further contemplation, the aforementioned action only addresses, and I want to use somewhat of a, maybe a doctor's term, if you will, it only addresses the symptoms. It doesn't address the problem. And the problem is the facility itself and where that facility is located. Now, I wasn't around when we had that when the discussion was where to put that particular facility. But this I do know, that the only halfway house that Keeton Correctional operates that's in Kentucky, it's here in Paducah. And it's the only one in the state, there are other private contractors that operate these things, that's in a neighborhood. So I can pretty much guess that today, if we were trying to decide, if we had that before us with our strategic plan, there's no way that that type of facility, as it has its attributes, would go in the middle of a neighborhood. So having said that, my recommendation for us to look at is this. That facility does not need to be there anymore. So that business license for them to operate anywhere in the city of Paducah needs to be revoked. That leaving that space there to be created to have so many possibilities to further enhance that neighborhood over there. There are people that I've talked to in that neighborhood who talked about, and it was a lady that just did not want to be recognized or mention her name, but she's like, why is that still here? Why is that in our neighborhood still? Didn't have a real answer for it. It's just the way it's always been. It's time up for that. We have a responsibility for our citizens all over Paducah, not just in some areas. That's not me talking, that's some perception of some people here, and that's not right. That we care more about certain folks in certain different areas. I'm like, no, it's not that at all. It may seem that way, but that's not it at all. This body, elected body, is first of all safety. There's bus stops there. There's kids on the corner there. There are folks there that's in that halfway house that understands that I got a few more weeks or a couple of more months to fulfill my sentence and I'm good. But when you look at from 2013 to 2017, over 160 inmates has escaped from there. 32 last year. That is not acceptable at all. And we are here in Paducah, in the state with myself and Commissioner Bartleman and Commissioner Scott Watson last December went up and we had a sit down and we talked about these very things. And whereas we have the ability right now to get the message out to the folks that live in our community as fast as possible, we don't have all the bells and whistles. But again, that's not going to solve the problem. So my recommendation, again, I want to repeat that, is for us to revoke those licenses, for them to do business here, and then they have to move away, someplace else, somewhere that it's not located in the middle of a neighborhood where you have kids catching buses, you have folks out right across the street from a church. And I might add this, that community does not look anything like it did when that facility open. That was an extremely high crime area. My mom used to tell us, don't go up there. Do not go down there. Doesn't look like that anymore. And with all the publicity that's happened recently, just recently, and that's the urgency here is because, you know, as we speak, that facility, by design, is the least secure facility in the correctional system. So if If I want to leave, I'm leaving. The person that's at the front desk or the night watchman, they are not required to try to restrain me from leaving. I'll let the police and the rest of you guys handle that. I'm out. I'm not thinking rationally. I'm not escaping thinking, well, I'll get caught and I'll go back to Keeton. No, if I get caught, I'm going back to prison. So I'm a little erratic. And we saw a guy leave the place, grab a car, steal a car, get a police cruiser, drive. I mean, all of those things are in play right now. So I want to bring that up. That is my recommendation, that we start that process the sooner the better.
Commerce questions?
I have a question. Where are they located in other cities?
Mostly in the South, Florida.
No, I mean like where, what types of neighborhoods are they? You're saying they're not in residential neighborhoods, so where are they?
They're out, away. They're
Like in rural areas?
Yeah. Matter of fact, when we, if you look at the halfway houses in Kentucky, now we're not just talking about Keeton, they're not in neighborhoods. I mean, you think about that.
So that's my question. I'm just asking, so they're out, like out in a field and there's nothing else around, or they're like in a downtown business area?
Yeah, they are not where Keeton is right now. They're not right next door to Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
So I guess my question would be, legally?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Have you had that discussion? Can we legally do what you're suggesting?
Well, we have legal counsel. I'm not a lawyer, but
I mean, is that your recommendation, that we have legal counsel
listen,
to
whatever
research
the process involves, let's start that process.
You haven't already done that. That's what you're asking for tonight, is
correct,
to move forward with that.
What group at the state is supposed to be overseeing their operations?
I'm sorry?
They have an accountability. There's an organization across the state that keeps those groups accountable. Which one is that? Like, who is charged with that in the state of Kentucky?
Yeah, I think, I know that they're private contractors. So.
And they're private contracting with someone.
Well, the state is privately contracted.
Do you know which organization at the state level?
What if it's the Department of Corrections?
Is
it Department of Corrections?
It comes through
I'm
that.
sure we have people in the room that knows the answer to that.
Well, here's the thing. There's a certain expectation of those facilities when you're housing felons.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I don't disagree with what you're proposing. I'm just asking questions to understand more.
The question is great, which it really re-emphasizes the fact of where this one is.
Not tracking.
There is an expectation of safety in with these type of facilities, right? Mm-hmm. And they're out somewhere.
Mm-hmm. She's just asking who holds them responsible.
Right.
Yeah, so who holds them responsible? Someone's not holding them responsible for what you're saying right now.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that, again, by design, those facilities are the least secure in the correctional system.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what is that? They'll have to change that on another level. But what authority do we have here now to correct that, to move that someplace else, away from our citizen that lives around a facility who's had over 160 inmates escape from now to back to 2013?
Mm-hmm. Would you be interested in solving that problem and the problem above it, which is the problem of if Keeton's the only organization or the only private contractor, if Keeton only has Paducah as its location in Kentucky, I would guess that probably means that there is probably less oversight on Keeton because they're not in relationship with the other places across Kentucky. So would you be open to us exploring what that looks like from an accountability perspective? I think your letter was right on, because I think the state needs to be partners with us in this so we can solve, like you said, the root problem. Let's still advocate for moving this place out of a neighborhood. I don't disagree with that at all, but I'm just wondering, could we even have a bigger impact on this, since you've kind of opened the can of worms by partnering with the state and finding out?
Because I don't feel like a good long-term solution for the community, which is, I agree that it shouldn't be in a residential neighborhood, but for better or for worse, people of this community also need the services of a halfway house. That's an important part of our legal system that members of our community, even those that have been convicted of felonies, still need. So I don't want to be short-sighted and just say, like the mayor's saying, just say not here, without being a solution, without being a part of the bigger conversation of, okay, but where?
Okay, well, let me just
Can we
enlighten you.
propose an idea to them?
Yeah, well, back in December, we went up to Frankfurt and we sat down with Secretary Tilley and his staff, and pretty much told us that, look, we have a problem. We're going to have to build more prisons. We have a problem with crime and housing these people. So we're looking at what do we need to do? Are we privatizing prisons? Is that an option? We're kind of strapped. So we're trying to, and this right here we didn't talk about, but I guess it works like once you serve a certain percentage of your sentence, since we're overcrowding, we're going to move you here or there. Now, city government moves kind of slow, compared to, you remember when you were in the private sector, how quick you guys got things done, Commissioner?
Yes.
Yeah, right. You were very frustrated. I remember when you first, you're like, oh my gosh, what's taking so long? All right, that's on the local level. On the state level, it moves even slower. So I hear what you're saying, and I've had very close friends that's gone through that system and has benefited from the halfway house. I get that. But this right here is totally unacceptable. And while we can talk about, I got some ideas that would help re-entry into the prison system that I have some meetings set up with some guys in Frankfurt. But for right now, the longer that facility is allowed to be where it is, the threat of what happened here recently in the past few months is a real threat. And it probably will happen again.
Have we ever asked them to move? Have we ever asked Keeton to move? Oh, Commissioner Bartleman's saying yes. We have? Okay. And they said no? Okay.
Right. So
yes, they said no. Right. Okay.
So if you have someone in your house that continually to and I'm going to use the word disrespect, doesn't really take what you're saying seriously, causing harm to your family, and you ask them to leave, and they said no, what do? You kick them out. I love y'all, but you can't stay here.
So I guess you said we have had discussions with them about moving, and they would not move. Yeah, I just wonder what would happen to the people that are there, and I guess that's up to Keeton. They would move them to some of their other facilities. These aren't, the people that are there aren't local people. They're just people in the system that are at a halfway house. They're not local.
These are state inmates.
Yeah.
The guy that just escaped and then...
I was going to say, some of them
There are some people.
Some of them would be local.
Most of them are from someplace else. The guy that just escaped and was apprehended was from Winchester. And he is back in Winchester, in jail. So you know what? We can talk about it. We can ask state for help. They'll tell us, well, we're trying to do something. Meanwhile, we have a situation in a historical part of our neighborhood that's trying to bring that utility back there. And who wants to put a building? Who wants to move there? Who wants to invest right next to this facility? It's right there. If they're not there, all of a sudden, that space is very attractive to someone. Right now, not so much.
So the first question is, do we have the authority to revoke a business license?
And do they own the
On
property?
what grounds?
Do they own
On
the
what
property?
grounds?
Do we have authority?
We're not asking whether it's a
not
good
your
enough
opinion.
reason.
Well,
We're
you said
asking
what
about
ground? That is the
legal.
ground.
No, I'm not saying whether you're. No, that's not what I'm saying.
What
I'm
are you
saying
saying?
I'm saying on what when you have legal authority to do something, you
Right.
still have to have a reason based on legal authority to do it. It can't
So
just
what does
be
the
because we
ordinance
think it's
say?
unacceptable.
Oh,
What
so-
does the ordinance
so
say
you're talking-
currently that allows us to revoke a license?
Right.
There's a list of reasons why we can
Okay,
do
so you're
it
talking
in the
about
current.
Does
You
this
talk-
fall under the legal
You're
reasons
talking
we
about
can
different
revoke?
language.
I'm saying, does this fall under the legal reasons we can revoke a business license?
Can we do it?
Can we do it?
Can we
That's the
legally do
question.
For
it?
that reason.
We will figure that out.
Okay,
That's the
great.
question.
And that's what you're looking for tonight, right?
As-
Is
as
just
soon as possible, because it's not in our neighborhood.
We hear you.
But I must say that there are folks not from McCracken County that was writing letters about that facility, because where that one of the inmates were caught was not in Paducah.
Okay.
Oh, well, the most recent one was from Winchester, right?
Well, I'm
That's where he
talking
was caught.
when they were apprehended.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, because the
So,
people,
so
where they're being
that
apprehended, people are
ripple, so
complaining.
that ripple effect that we're talking about, it goes across the lake. It may originated here, but you have a person that's not thinking rationally and he's desperate.
Right.
That's what we're dealing with.
Well, I want to thank you for your passion on this issue. I mean, it honestly shows in your leadership on it. I think we're a stronger body when we all have our different passions. We all have our different areas that we find that we want to be more involved with. And so I want to thank you for your passion and your leadership on this issue.
Well, I must revert back to a football analogy.
Oh, here we go.
No, Commissioner Rhodes, he is all about cars and trains and
gotta get a
automobiles.
thing.
No, I'm just
I know
kidding.
I don't have one either.
We gotta
Well,
get
here's the
things.
thing. I had a client, a personal training client once, and this young man, big guy, he looked the part, and he's like, "Coach, we had a position open, center, football, snapping the ball to quarterback." He's like, "I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get that spot." It's like, "Okay, all right. I'm gonna get it, Coach." "Okay, you believe I'm gonna get it?" I said, "Do you believe you're gonna get it?" He's like, "I think I am." And he kept on. I said, "I'll tell you what. When we line up against McCracken County, and you bend over the ball and snap it to the quarterback, then we'll know, won't we? That means you have done everything that's required of you to earn that starting spot." So tonight, what I'm saying is, we'll see what happens up there. Let's go through the process and we'll see. If it's still here a year from now, then we'll know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments tonight? No? All right, we have one. Mr. Ron Ward came to join us tonight. Thank you, Ron. Come on up.
Yeah, let me pass this out to y'all so you can it'll be my speech. Information.
The ad?
Out.
The coupons?
Well, it looks like we were talking about tourism tonight with Mr. Wilson's financial impact, but there's other things involved with tourism too.
Bennett, Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Bennett, okay. You know, Paducah used to be the music capital of West Kentucky. I mean, we had Executive Inn, we had probably bars, lounges all over town. They're all gone. Then we had the music festival on the river. Then it graduated to Live on Broadway. Well, Live on Broadway, I was reading some old newspaper articles today.
It was great.
It had like they mentioned 3,000, several thousand people. I remember the crowds. 80 cars there. Well, that was just one night. It was always packed. Then we graduated to this Riverfront concert series, which usually has 4 concerts, but they're on Thursday night, and nobody comes. I mean, I've been down there at every one of them, and the only one most of them this year had 200 people. The one for right before the 8th celebration had about 400, 450. That is no crowds. Well, what I've looked at here, and I've been studying Owensboro, like their Friday Night Live. They have billboards up in town, if you've seen them. Have you seen their billboards? You know, there's one on the Beltline advertised. I think there's one on Park Avenue. You've been advertising all summer, where they have 16 nights They have 89 bands over those nights. They have a budget of about $80,000 for that thing over the summer, and I studied it. But the way they do it is public and private partnerships. I mean, Walmart, Kroger, Atmos Energy, they're only out about the private companies pay about 90% of that budget.
Gotcha.
And I mean, you could do that here. That was in your strategic planning to bring big crowds downtown. Well, I mean, you've got the arts, but you're going to need some music. You're going to have to do something besides that to bring these big crowds downtown. But in my opinion, they would come back. I mean, the other cities are doing the same thing. I mean, now Madisonville's having Friday Night Live. Hopkinsville's having Friday Night Live. I mean, we're in competition with these other cities now. You know, where they wouldn't be advertising here their Friday Night Live. And I was reading on today about their Friday Night Live. 20% of the people come there from out of town. So, I mean, I think you should look at something like that. But you've got all these companies here, Walmart, Atmos Energy, Kroger. Get them involved in all this and bring life back to downtown. So that's about all I've got to say.
Thank you, Ron. You know, it makes me think about our 4th of July celebration this year when Independence Bank, a local private company, sponsored the event. So we got one under our hat, so maybe we can do a few more.
Well, I mean, you got all these companies here in Paducah, and I'm sure they're all prospering just like they are there.
Yep.
So
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Just want to comment. You guys, I remember when downtown after dinner, when it first started, there was the entertainment was spews here, there. Oh my gosh, it was so awesome, the people that would come. And you talked about 20% in Owensboro, I think was from someplace else.
Out of town.
Yeah, we'd have people come in and they were like, we heard this was going on, and it was packed out. So I think downtown is looking so much better than it was 5 years ago. It's a lot of activity down there, and you're right, Independence Bank partnered with us for the 4th of July celebration, and so that's a start. That's a start. Appreciate it.
There's been some great talent. Yeah, I've seen you down there at those events. There's really been some great bands.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it has so much potential.
I know.
It needs to be on Friday or Saturday night where people will come.
Yeah, and this Saturday.
Saturday night.
This is the first time, but
Hopefully we'll have a big group.
yeah. Thank you, then.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Appreciate your input.
All right, if nothing else, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.